We're watching David Suzuki Down Under in the most fascinating interview I've ever seen about the man, mainly because it's the first interview Suzuki himself has not controlled. So he couldn't shut up people who had tough questions, and it's amazing how weak and uninformed he is when he's pressed on real subjects. Amazing. Here's a fascinating expose of Suzuki just plain making up facts.
In an opinion piece last week, you wrote that the Great Barrier Reef was threatened by the increasing frequency of cyclones. Everyone watching and listening can go onto the Bureau of Meteorology's website and see that there's no increase. In fact, there's been a decline over the last 40 years and no increase in the severity. Are you not, by exaggerating or even just getting it wrong, are you not actually vulnerable of actually undermining your very own aim in that, the Great Barrier Reef does have environmental threats, but cyclones ain't one of them?
All right, that was one, I have to admit that was suggested to me by an Australian, and it is true. I mean, it may be a mistake, I don't know.
See, in Canada, does anyone call out the great David Suzuki for his BS? Does anyone other than the Sun News Network even fact check his BS? Suzuki just plain makes things up. Cyclones are ruining the Great Barrier Reef? But that's the opposite of true. They're down. And when pressed by an expert, he just admits he made it up. By now in the interview, he's learned not to tangle with the real scientists in the room, so he just plain old surrenders. He blames it on some guy. Huh. But then a friendly question comes in to give Suzuki a breather. Hey, David, isn't all this about mean conservatives beating up saints like you? But this friendly softball question doesn't help Suzuki. It merely exposes more of his mindset. Look.
Given the rise of right-wing conservative governments, both in Australia and in Canada, how can we best effectively shift the political debate from ideology and economic self-interest back to science and evidence base?
Well, this is the number one question. You see, I think the problem is that corporations have now become so big and so powerful. The big ones are bigger than most governments on the planet, and they have the capacity to fund political campaigns beyond anything individuals can do. They're not humans. Corporations are economic entities or structures, and yet they're allowed to fund political candidates. And when those candidates are elected, guess who gets in the door first? It's corporations. And we now have governments that seem to feel that the corporate agenda is the job of government, to keep true to that corporate agenda. And this is an issue that we have to face up to. Corporations are not people. They shouldn't be funding. They shouldn't be funding campaigns at all. They shouldn't be allowed to lobby governments.
Yeah, those craven politicians, eh? Like Dalton McGuinty, the former Liberal Premier of Ontario, with whom David Suzuki cut a TV ad. Suzuki is extremely connected with power and money and politics. He's not just a 1%er, he's a 0.1%er. His homes combined are worth more than $10 million. His David Suzuki Foundation, which bizarrely has charitable status to promote his BS, is a $9.3 million corporation. According to his CRA filings, which you can see here, he has 73 staff on the payroll, 73. And he's bitching about corporations? Oh, and lobbyists too. Well, fancy that. The David Suzuki Foundation has plenty of registered lobbyists on their payroll too, regularly trolling the hallways of power, pressing for changes to laws they don't like and policies to serve Suzuki's own interests and ideology. If you had half a dozen lobbyists working for you, if your company was worth more than $9 million, would you complain about lobbyists? Well, if you were far away in Australia and thought you could get away with it, you might. One more fact. Suzuki says politicians are bought and paid for. Well, maybe that's true with his friend Dalton McGuinty, I don't know. But I do know that Stephen Harper, who Suzuki hates with a passion, he brought in legislation to ban all corporate donations from federal politics and union donations too. Now only individuals can donate, and a fairly small amount, just over $1,000. David Suzuki is just wrong. His facts about corporate control of politics are just wrong. He's living in a previous decade. just like his facts about global warming are. Last clip for today, and possibly the craziest.
Are you saying this is what's happening in Canada or in Australia?
In Canada,
or both?
I'm afraid we're leading the way now in the world. We now have a government that is making a major commitment to increasing the number of prisons at a time when the rate of crime has been dropping steadily over the last 10 years. So I'm wondering, I'm not a guy that thinks about conspiracies, but I'm wondering whether our Prime Minister thinks he's going to be creating new categories of crime like eco-terrorism or, as he calls us, environmental radicals, radical extremists. But anyway, there is a very strong...
With all due respect, that does sound like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. In my moments, I do kind of wonder.
Suzuki thinks that Stephen Harper is building jails for environmentalists. He says that. He says that in Canada, too. We showed him saying the same thing in Vancouver last week, and no one in Canada dares question him. The funny thing, of course, is earlier in the show, he was calling for jail for people who disagree with him. Maybe he's projecting a bit. But did you hear his theory there? He is a 9/11-style, truther-style conspiracy theorist. But here in Canada, he gets away with it. Now in Australia, God bless them, they call him out on it. They call him out as a nut, a phony, a truther. They're slightly more polite. My friends, can you believe this? All of this craziness. And we've only got through the first half of Suzuki's appearance on Australian TV. Come back tomorrow when we have the second half to see Suzuki go full conspiracy theory on everything from fracking to genetically modified food. I can tell you this, the Sun News Network is the only channel in Canada you'll be able to see this. The CBC sure as hell won't show you what their star performer has to say without his teleprompter there to help him.